I'm Maya, 28 years old, and I thought family loyalty was unbreakable until my sister Jessica cleaned out my house fund to buy herself a BMW. $15,000 gone. Money I'd saved for 3 years working double shifts as a nurse, stored in what I believed was a secure joint account with my parents for my future home down payment. The morning I discovered the theft, my parents didn't apologize. Instead, they defended her. Jessica needed transportation for her new job, Mom said calmly, as if stealing my dreams was just another Tuesday. What I didn't know then was that this betrayal would uncover a web of family lies spanning decades. And my revenge would be so perfectly calculated that it would destroy everything they thought they knew about control and favoritism forever. Hey everyone! Before we dive into this wild family drama that literally changed everything I thought I knew about loyalty, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. If you're ready for a story about family betrayal that'll make your jaw drop, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because this revenge journey gets absolutely insane. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this family drama unfolds when secrets start spilling and karma comes knocking. Let's get started. Growing up, Jessica was always the golden child. 3 years younger than me, she had this magical ability to charm our parents into believing she could do no wrong. While I worked part-time jobs throughout high school and college to pay for my nursing degree, Jessica got her communications major fully funded by Mom and Dad. While I moved out at 22 to start building my independent life, Jessica stayed home, rent-free, claiming she needed to find herself in the job market. The joint account had been Mom's idea 2 years ago. Maya, honey, you're so responsible with money, she'd said during one of our family dinners. Why don't we open a joint savings account? That way, if you ever need help with a house down payment, we can contribute too. It seemed like finally, they were recognizing my hard work and responsibility. Dad had nodded approvingly, saying something about how proud they were of my dedication to homeownership at such a young age. I should have seen the red flags. Every month when I deposited my carefully budgeted savings, sometimes as little as $200, sometimes as much as $800 when I picked up extra shifts, Jessica would make little comments. Still saving for that house, Maya? Must be nice to have such simple dreams. Or worse, I don't know why you're in such a rush to tie yourself down with a mortgage. Life's about experiences, not possessions. But I persevered. Every double shift at the hospital, every weekend I spent working instead of socializing, every vacation I didn't take, it all went toward that dream of having my own space. My own home. Somewhere I could paint the walls whatever color I wanted, somewhere I could finally feel like I'd made it as an adult. The account grew steadily. $15,237 by last month. I had been so close to my goal of $20,000 for a decent down payment on a starter home in our area. I had even started looking at listings, bookmarking properties, imagining where I'd put my furniture. Then Jessica announced she'd gotten a job at a marketing firm downtown. It was her first real job since graduating college 2 years ago, and our parents were over the moon. Our baby is finally spreading her wings. Mom had gushed. Dad took us all out to dinner to celebrate, and Jessica ordered the most expensive item on the menu, a habit that should have reminded me how casually she spent money that wasn't hers. The only problem, Jessica had said that night, twirling her pasta around her fork with practiced elegance, is that I'll need reliable transportation. The bus system downtown is just so unreliable, and ride shares are going to add up over time. I remember nodding sympathetically. I remember suggesting she look into used cars, maybe something practical and affordable. I remember her wrinkling her nose and saying, "Oh, Maya, you know I can't drive just anything. Image matters in marketing." What I didn't remember was giving her access to my dreams. But apparently, I had. The morning I went to check my account balance online, something I did religiously every few days. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Balance, $237.12. My heart hammered against my ribs. There had to be a mistake. I refreshed the page. I logged out and logged back in. I even called the bank's customer service line, certain their system had glitched. I'm showing a withdrawal of $15,000 made 3 days ago, at your local branch, the representative told me in a professionally sympathetic voice. The withdrawal was made by Jessica Martinez, who is listed as an authorized user on your joint account. The room started spinning. Jessica Martinez. My sister. My blood. I called her immediately, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice bright and cheerful. Maya. Perfect timing, I was just thinking about you. Where is my money, Jessica? A pause. Then, in a voice that was suddenly much smaller, oh. You found out. Where is my money? Maya, calm down. I can explain. I was going to tell you. You stole $15,000 from me. I didn't steal anything. It's a joint account, which means I'm allowed to. That was my house fund. You know I've been saving for years. And now I have transportation to my new job, which means I can pay you back. It's like an investment in my future, which benefits the whole family. I had never wanted to reach through a phone and strangle someone more in my entire life. Jessica, I swear to God, if you don't return that money immediately. Maya, you're being dramatic. It's not like you were buying a house tomorrow. And besides, I talked to Mom and Dad about it first. The bottom fell out of my world. You what? I talked to Mom and Dad. They said it was fine. I hung up and immediately called our parents' house. Mom answered, and I could hear the defensiveness in her voice before I even said hello. Maya, honey, before you say anything, just listen. You knew. Jessica explained the situation to us, and we thought. You thought what? That stealing my life savings was okay. It's not stealing, Maya. It's family helping family. Jessica needed transportation for her career, and you weren't going to buy a house for at least another year anyway. The casual cruelty of that statement hit me like a physical blow. Not only had they allowed my sister to rob me, but they had decided my timeline didn't matter. My dreams could wait. Jessica's wants were more important than my needs. That was the moment I realized everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. And that was the moment I started planning my revenge. I spent the next week in a state of controlled fury, carefully documenting everything while playing the role of the hurt, but ultimately understanding sister. I needed information, and I knew that showing my true feelings would only make my family close ranks against me even tighter. During Sunday dinner, a tradition I considered skipping, but ultimately decided was too valuable for intelligence gathering, Jessica proudly showed off her new BMW. It was a sleek black sedan, barely a year old, with leather seats and all the bells and whistles. She spent 20 minutes walking us through its features like she was hosting a car show. And the best part, she gushed, running her hand along the hood, is that it was exactly $15,000. Can you believe how perfect that worked out? I smiled tightly and nodded, even as I mentally calculated the insurance costs, registration fees, and monthly payments she was conveniently not mentioning. Because there had to be monthly payments. No way a car that nice, that new, cost exactly what she stole from me. That night, I did some research. The exact model and year of Jessica's BMW had a market value starting at $28,000. Used, in excellent condition, they went for at least $22,000 to $25,000. Which meant either Jessica had found the deal of the century, or she was lying about something. I decided to do some detective work. The next day, I called the dealership, whose license plate frame was on Jessica's car, and pretended to be interested in a similar model. "Oh, that's interesting," I told the salesman. "My sister just bought one from you guys, a black BMW sedan." Jessica Martinez. "I was wondering if you had any more deals like that one." Martinez. I could hear him clicking through his computer. "Oh yes. Your sister. That was a great purchase. She got our certified pre-owned special, and with the financing package, her monthly payments worked out really well." Financing. Of course. Can you remind me what her down payment was? I want to budget similarly. Let me see, looks like she put down $15,000, and she's financing the remaining 12,800 over 60 months. Smart girl, she locked in a great interest rate. I thanked him and hung up, my suspicions confirmed. Jessica hadn't bought the car outright with my money. She'd used my $15,000 as a down payment, and was now on the hook for monthly payments of probably around $250 for the next 5 years. But that wasn't even the worst part one was about to discover. That evening, I drove by my parents' house and noticed Jessica's BMW parked in the driveway alongside a car I didn't recognize, a silver Audi with temporary plates. My heart started racing as possibilities swirled through my mind. I parked down the street and watched. After about an hour, my parents came out with a man in a suit, shaking hands and exchanging papers. The man got into the Audi and drove away, leaving my parents standing in the driveway looking pleased with themselves. I waited until the next morning to call Mom, keeping my voice casual. "Hey, I drove by yesterday and saw a nice Audi in your driveway. Are you guys car shopping?" "Oh, that." Mom's voice was bright with excitement. "Your father and I decided it was time for an upgrade. We bought a certified pre-owned Audi Q5. It's beautiful, Maya, you have to come see it." "Wow, that's exciting. When did you guys decide to get a new car?" "Well, we've been thinking about it for a while, but Jessica's job situation really motivated us. We realized we could afford to help her with transportation and treat ourselves too. It all worked out perfectly." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Not only had they allowed Jessica to steal my money, but they had apparently used the occasion to justify a major purchase for themselves. They were treating my financial devastation like some kind of family celebration. "That's great, Mom. I'm happy for you. You should come over this weekend. Jessica's cooking dinner to thank us for everything, and we can all admire our new cars together." After I hung up, I sat in my car outside the hospital before my shift and tried not to scream. My family wasn't just enabling Jessica's theft, they were celebrating it. They were treating my life savings like it was monopoly money, something that could be redistributed on a whim to make everyone happy except me. That's when I realized that direct confrontation wasn't going to work. They had already decided that Jessica's needs trumped my rights, and no amount of arguing was going to change their minds. They saw me as responsible, reliable Maya, who would always bounce back, always forgive, always put family first no matter how much they hurt me. It was time to show them exactly how wrong they were about who they were dealing with. I started making phone calls. First, to a lawyer who specialized in financial fraud and family disputes. Then, to my bank to understand exactly what legal rights I had regarding the joint account. Then, to a private investigator, who came highly recommended for domestic financial investigations. If my family wanted to play games with my money and my future, I was going to make sure I understood all the rules. And more importantly, I was going to make sure I won. The private investigator I hired, Marcus Chen, was a soft-spoken man in his 50s who specialized in financial improprieties within families. During our first meeting at a coffee shop downtown, he listened to my story with the kind of professional detachment that told me he'd heard variations of this tale many times before. "What you're describing isn't uncommon," he said, making notes in a small leather journal. "Often, when there's one instance of financial boundary crossing in a family, there are others. People who feel entitled to one person's money rarely stop at one incident." "What do you mean?" "I mean we should look at the bigger picture. Your parents' finances, your sister's financial history, any patterns of money manipulation or control. Sometimes these families operate on systems that outsiders would consider highly unusual, but everyone inside considers normal." Marcus was thorough. Over the next 2 weeks, he compiled a report that made my blood run cold and my resolve strengthen in equal measure. First, there was Jessica's financial history. My responsible, job-hunting sister had actually been employed on and off for the past 2 years. She just hadn't told our parents about most of her jobs, because she'd been fired from them for various reasons. Tardiness, attitude problems, conflicts with supervisors. She'd worked at a boutique for 3 months before being let go for excessive personal phone calls. She'd been a receptionist at a dental office for 6 weeks before being fired for showing up hungover. She'd done freelance social media work for several small businesses, all of which had eventually stopped hiring her after she missed deadlines or delivered subpar work. But here's the kicker: throughout all of this, she'd been receiving money from our parents. Not just small amounts for gas or groceries, but substantial monthly transfers. Between $800 and $1,200 every month for the past 18 months. Money that was supposedly for job-searching expenses and professional development. Marcus had bank records proving all of this. Jessica hadn't been the struggling, earnest job seeker our parents had painted her as. She'd been a serial employment failure, who was being bankrolled by our parents to maintain her lifestyle while lying about her work history. But that wasn't even the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part was what Marcus found about our parents' finances. Remember how they'd suddenly decided they could afford to help Jessica and buy themselves a new car? Turns out, they'd taken out a second mortgage on their house to do it. $25,000 in equity, withdrawn as a lump sum just 2 weeks before Jessica stole my money. "They could have given your sister money from their own home equity," Marcus explained, showing me the mortgage documents. "Instead, they allowed her to take yours, then used their new cash to buy themselves a car and establish what I'm guessing is an even more substantial financial cushion for her." I stared at the paperwork, my hands shaking. So they borrowed money against their house to fund both Jessica's car and their own, but they still let her steal mine. That's exactly what happened. And Maya, there's more. Marcus opened another folder. "I did some checking on your family's financial history, going back about 5 years. Your parents have been taking out loans, credit lines, and refinancing their mortgage repeatedly. Always for amounts that coincide with major expenses for Jessica. Her college tuition, her spring break trips, her post-graduation finding herself year in California that I'm betting you didn't know about." I hadn't known about California. According to Marcus's research, Jessica had spent 8 months after college living in San Diego, ostensibly trying to break into the entertainment industry. Our parents had funded the entire adventure, rent, living expenses, even headshots and acting classes, to the tune of nearly $30,000. "Your parents have remortgaged their house 3 times in 5 years, Marcus continued. They currently owe more on their home than it's worth in today's market. They are what we call house poor. All their wealth is tied up in an asset that's leveraged beyond its value. But they always seem so financially secure. Because your sister's lifestyle requires them to appear successful. Think about it. How would it look if the parents of an aspiring marketing professional couldn't afford to help their daughter? Your parents have mortgaged their retirement to maintain the illusion that Jessica is thriving." The picture Marcus painted was devastating. My parents weren't just enabling Jessica's poor decisions, they were funding them at the expense of their own financial security. And when push came to shove, they'd chosen to let Jessica steal from me rather than admit they'd already overextended themselves supporting her. I thought about all the times I'd offered to help my parents with expenses over the years. The grocery money I'd given them during Dad's brief unemployment. The car repair bills I'd split with them when they said money was tight. The Christmas and birthday gifts I'd bought for the whole family because I thought I was the only one with steady income. Meanwhile, they'd been funneling money to Jessica and lying about their financial situation to everyone, including me. What I don't understand, I told Marcus, is why they'd jeopardize their own security for someone who can't even hold down a job. Marcus closed the folders and looked at me with something like sympathy. From what I've observed in cases like this, it's usually about control and identity. Your parents have built their sense of self around being Jessica's rescuers. She's not just their daughter. She's their project, their proof that they are good parents who can fix any problem with enough money and support. And me? You're the proof that they did something right the first time. You don't need rescuing, so you don't feed their need to feel necessary. Jessica makes them feel important. You make them feel successful, but not needed. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I cried. Not angry tears, but heartbroken ones. I hadn't just been robbed of $15,000. I'd been systematically excluded from my family's financial life while unknowingly subsidizing it. I'd been kept in the dark about major decisions, while being treated like a personal ATM whenever they needed to appear generous or helpful. But I was done crying. It was time for action. Marcus's investigation had given me something more valuable than money, leverage. I now understood that my family's entire financial ecosystem was built on lies, debt, and the assumption that I would always be the responsible one who asked no questions and caused no trouble. They had fundamentally miscalculated who they were dealing with. I spent the next week crafting my response with the precision I usually reserved for my most critical patients. Every move had to be calculated, every consequence considered. I wasn't just seeking revenge. I was seeking justice, and justice required strategy. First, I consulted with the lawyer Marcus had recommended, Sarah Kim, who specialized in financial fraud and family law. Sarah reviewed all of Marcus's findings and gave me a sobering assessment of my legal options. Technically, your sister didn't commit theft, she explained during our consultation. You were all authorized users on the joint account, which means any of you could legally withdraw funds. However, there are several angles we could pursue if you wanted to take legal action. What kind of angles? Breach of fiduciary duty, for one. Joint accounts typically carry an implicit understanding that major withdrawals require consultation with other account holders, especially when those funds were contributed by a specific individual for a specific purpose. We could also look at fraud by deception, if Jessica misrepresented her intentions when the account was established, or if your parents misrepresented the account's purpose to facilitate her access to your money. Sarah paused, studying my face. But Maya, I have to ask, is legal action really what you want? Because litigation is expensive, time-consuming, and it will absolutely destroy your family relationships permanently. Even if you win, you might not recover enough to justify the cost, and you'll definitely lose your family. I thought about that for a long moment. Did I want to lose my family permanently? The family that had systematically excluded me from major financial decisions while benefiting from my contributions. The family that had chosen Jessica's wants over my needs without a moment's hesitation. The family that was apparently comfortable living in debt to fund one daughter's lifestyle, while the other daughter worked double shifts to save for basic adult milestones. Sarah, I said finally, I think they lost me when they decided my dreams were less important than Jessica's image. But I don't want to sue them. I want to do something better. What do you have in mind? I want to tell the truth. All of it. To everyone. That evening, I started making a list of every person who needed to know what had really happened. Not just about the $15,000, but about the entire pattern of financial deception that had been playing out in my family for years. Hey everyone, I know this story is getting intense, and trust me, it's about to get even wilder. Before we continue with how I exposed everything, I'm genuinely curious. Have you ever been in a situation where family loyalty conflicted with what you knew was right? Drop a comment and let me know, because sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one who's dealt with this kind of betrayal. If you're invested in seeing how this family drama unfolds and whether justice actually gets served, hit that like button to let me know you're with me on this journey. And definitely subscribe, because the revenge I'm about to unleash is going to be absolutely satisfying. Now, let's talk about how I decided to burn it all down. The first person on my list was my grandmother, my mother's mom, who had always been the family's unofficial financial advisor and moral compass. Grandma Rose had helped my parents with their first house down payment 30 years ago, and had always preached the importance of financial responsibility and honesty within families. The second person was my Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, who was a successful financial planner, and had always been critical of what she called enabling parenting. Linda had made comments over the years about Jessica's lack of direction, but she'd always been polite enough not to push the issue during family gatherings. The third person was my Uncle Mike, Dad's brother, who owned a successful construction company and had offered to help me find good deals on homes when I was ready to buy. Mike had always treated me like the responsible niece and Jessica like the flighty one, but he'd never said anything directly critical. The fourth person was my cousin David, Linda's son, who was a journalist for the local newspaper, and had always been interested in stories about financial fraud and family dynamics. David had actually written several pieces about how financial abuse often goes unrecognized when it happens within families. But before I talked to any of them, I needed to give my immediate family one last chance to make things right. Not because I expected them to take it, but because I wanted to be absolutely sure that when I scorched the earth, I had taken the moral high ground first. I crafted a carefully worded email and sent it to my parents and Jessica simultaneously. Mom, Dad, and Jessica. I've spent the past few weeks processing what happened with my house fund, and I need to address this situation directly before moving forward. Jessica, you withdrew $15,000 of my savings without my permission to buy a car. That money represented 3 years of sacrifice and planning for my future home purchase. Regardless of the joint account structure, you knew that money wasn't yours to take. Mom and Dad, you not only approved of this, but used it as an opportunity to justify major purchases for yourselves while keeping me in the dark about your decision-making process. I'm prepared to consider this a family loan rather than theft, but only under the following conditions. Jessica must provide a written repayment plan for the full $15,000, with monthly payments beginning immediately. Mom and Dad must acknowledge in writing that they made a serious error in judgment, and that my financial goals are as important as Jessica's needs. All parties must agree to complete transparency about family financial matters going forward, including the extent of Jessica's past financial support and our parents' current debt situation. Jessica must provide proof of employment and a realistic budget showing how she'll manage her car payments while repaying me. If these conditions are met within 1 week, I'm willing to work toward rebuilding our family relationships. If not, I will be forced to seek other remedies to recover my money and protect myself from future financial manipulation. I love you all, but I will not be taken advantage of anymore. Maya. I sent the email on a Tuesday evening and asked for a response by the following Tuesday. I genuinely wondered if they would surprise me, if they would recognize the seriousness of what they'd done and make an effort to fix it. They didn't respond for 5 days. When they finally did, it was a group text from Mom, Maya, we think you're being very dramatic about this situation. Jessica is family, and family helps family. We are disappointed in your attitude and think you need some time to cool off. We'll talk when you're ready to be reasonable. That was it. No acknowledgement of wrongdoing, no repayment plan, no transparency. Just dismissal and condescension. They had made their choice, and now I was going to make mine. I started with Grandma Rose. Grandma Rose lived in a tidy assisted living community, about 20 minutes from my parents' house. At 84, she was sharp as ever and had always prided herself on knowing everything that happened in our family. Which made it particularly interesting that she had no idea about Jessica's real employment history or our parents' mounting debt. I visited her on a Saturday afternoon, bringing her favorite tea and homemade cookies, a ritual we'd maintained since I was a child. We sat in her small, but comfortable living room, surrounded by photos of 4 generations of our family, and I told her everything. Grandma Rose listened without interrupting, her expression growing more troubled with each revelation. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time, staring out her window at the community garden where she spent most mornings. "Maya," she said finally, "I gave your parents $5,000 last Christmas. They said it was to help with Jessica's job search expenses." My heart sank. "Grandma, Jessica has been getting $800 to $1,200 a month from them for over a year. And they told me they were proud of how independent you'd become, how you never needed help with anything." Grandma Rose's voice was tight with anger. "They made it sound like Jessica was struggling while you were thriving. I've been working double shifts to save money they let her steal." Grandma Rose stood up abruptly and walked to her small desk, pulling out a leather-bound checkbook. "How much do you need to get back on track with your house fund?" "Grandma, no. That's not why I'm telling you this. Maya Elizabeth Martinez, don't you dare tell me what I can and cannot do with my own money." She was using the voice that had terrified me as a child when I'd misbehaved. "Your parents have been lying to me for months, taking money under false pretenses, and allowing one granddaughter to steal from another. That ends now." She wrote me a check for $10,000. When I protested, she held up a hand. "This is not charity, and it's not a gift. This is justice. And Maya?" She looked at me with the steel in her eyes that I'd inherited but rarely used. "I think it's time the rest of the family knew what kind of people your parents have become." From Grandma Rose's apartment, I called Aunt Linda. Linda was appalled but not entirely surprised. "I've been wondering how Jessica could afford her lifestyle without steady employment," she said. "And I noticed your parents seem to be spending quite a bit lately, but they always deflected when I asked about retirement planning." Linda offered to help me invest Grandma Rose's money wisely while I decided how to handle the situation with my parents. She also made a suggestion that hadn't occurred to me. "Maya, our whole family is getting together for Dad's birthday next month. Everyone will be there, your parents, Jessica, all the aunts and uncles, all the cousins. Maybe it's time for some family transparency." The birthday party. Grandpa Joe's 80th birthday celebration, planned for the following month at my parents' house. The whole extended family would be there, about 30 people total. It would be the perfect opportunity to address the situation with witnesses, in a setting where my parents couldn't simply hang up or walk away. But first, I wanted to understand exactly how deep this rabbit hole went. I called Uncle Mike next. Mike's reaction was immediate and explosive. "They let Jessica steal your house money. Maya, what the hell is wrong with your parents?" When I explained the full extent of what Marcus had discovered, Mike was quiet for a long time. "Maya, I need to tell you something. Last year, your dad asked me for a loan. $15,000. He said it was for home improvements, that they wanted to redo the kitchen, but didn't want to touch their retirement savings." My stomach dropped. "Did you give it to him?" "I did. And now I'm wondering what that money actually went toward." Mike promised to start asking some discreet questions among the family about other loans or financial help my parents might have requested. He also offered to help me confront them at the birthday party. Your parents have gotten comfortable lying because no one's ever called them on it, he said. Maybe it's time someone did. Finally, I called my cousin David. David listened to the whole story with the focused attention of a professional journalist, asking clarifying questions and requesting copies of the documentation Marcus had compiled. When I finished, he was quiet for several minutes. Maya, this is a really good story. What do you mean? I mean, this is exactly the kind of financial abuse that happens in families all the time, but no one talks about it because it's family business. You have documentation, you have a clear pattern of behavior, and you have a resolution that other people could learn from. David, I'm not trying to get my family in the newspaper. No, but you could help other people recognize these patterns in their own families. And Maya? His voice softened. Sometimes the threat of public exposure is more effective than actual exposure. People who are comfortable lying to family members get very uncomfortable when they think strangers might find out. David offered to write the story with names changed, focusing on the financial patterns and warning signs rather than the personal details. He also suggested that I might want to let my parents know that their behavior had attracted the attention of someone who writes about financial fraud for a living. By the end of that weekend, I had a plan. It was more comprehensive than anything I'd originally imagined, and it would absolutely change my family relationships forever. But I was done being the responsible one who absorbed everyone else's bad behavior for the sake of keeping peace. At Grandpa Joe's birthday party, in front of the entire extended family, I was going to tell the truth. All of it. And I was going to let everyone decide for themselves what kind of people my parents and Jessica really were. But first, I was going to give them one more chance to come clean on their own. I sent one final email. Mom, Dad, and Jessica. Grandpa Joe's birthday party is in 2 weeks. I will be attending, and I will be prepared to discuss our recent financial situation with anyone who asks about my house fund or Jessica's new car. If you would prefer to address this situation privately before then, I am still willing to accept the terms I outlined in my previous email. This is your last opportunity to handle this within our immediate family. Maya. I sent it on a Monday morning and waited. They responded that evening with a phone call from Mom, her voice tight with anger. Maya, I cannot believe you would threaten to embarrass this family at Grandpa Joe's birthday party. What has gotten into you? Mom, I'm not threatening anything. I'm simply going to answer honestly if people ask me questions. You're going to ruin a celebration for an 80-year-old man because you're mad about money. I'm going to ruin a celebration. Mom, you and Dad and Jessica already ruined my financial future. I'm just refusing to lie about it anymore. Maya, if you do this, if you embarrass us like this, there will be consequences. What consequences, Mom? You'll cut me out of family financial decisions. You already did that. You'll stop including me in major choices. You already do that. You'll treat Jessica like the golden child and me like an ATM. You've been doing that for years. Silence. Mom, the only thing that changes if I tell the truth is that everyone else will know what kind of people you really are. And if you're ashamed of that, maybe you should consider changing your behavior instead of asking me to lie about it. She hung up on me. 2 days later, Jessica called. Maya, please don't do this. I'll pay you back, I promise. I just need time. How much time, Jessica? And with what money? You can barely hold down a job. I'm doing better now. This job is different. Every job is different until you get fired from it. Jessica, you've had 4 jobs in 2 years. That's not fair. Those situations were complicated. Being late, being unprepared, and having conflicts with supervisors aren't complicated, Jessica. They are patterns. Long pause. Maya, if you do this at Grandpa's party, you'll destroy our family. Jessica, you destroyed our family when you stole my money and Mom and Dad chose to cover for you instead of making you fix it. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. But everyone will know. Everyone will think we are terrible people. Jessica, you are terrible people. The only question is whether everyone else should be allowed to know it. She hung up too. 3 days before the party, Dad called. Maya, your mother and sister are very upset about this situation. I'm upset too, Dad. I'm upset that my sister is a thief and my parents are enablers. That's not fair. We've always tried to be good parents to both of you. No, Dad, you've tried to be good parents to Jessica. You've expected me to be a good daughter to all of you. Maya, what do you want from us? What will it take for you to drop this? Finally, one of them was asking what it would take. I want Jessica to pay me back. I want you and Mom to acknowledge that what happened was wrong. I want transparency about family finances. And I want proof that this will never happen again. Maya, we can't just come up with $15,000. Dad, you took out a $25,000 second mortgage 2 weeks before Jessica stole my money. Don't tell me you can't access funds. Silence. How do you know about the mortgage? Dad, when someone steals $15,000 from you, you tend to do some research. I know about Jessica's employment history. I know about the monthly payments you've been making to her. I know about the California trip. I know about the money you borrowed from Uncle Mike and Grandma Rose. I know everything. The line was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Maya, we never meant for things to get this complicated. But they did get complicated, Dad. And instead of fixing it, you all decided to lie about it and hope I'd just accept being robbed. What if we could work out a payment plan? Something reasonable. Dad, I sent you all a payment plan 3 weeks ago. You ignored it. Now it's too late for private solutions. Maya, please. Think about what this will do to your mother. Think about Grandpa Joe. Dad, I've thought about everyone but myself for long enough. I'll see you at the party. I hung up, and for the first time in weeks, I felt completely calm. Grandpa Joe's 80th birthday party was held at my parents' house on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in late spring. Mom had outdone herself with decorations, catering, and organizing family members to contribute photos for a memory slideshow. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a perfect family celebration. I arrived fashionably late, wearing a dress that made me feel confident and carrying a wrapped gift for Grandpa Joe along with a folder of documents I hoped I wouldn't need to use. The house was full of relatives I hadn't seen in months, all eager to catch up and hear about everyone's lives. Jessica's BMW was prominently parked in the driveway, and I noticed several relatives admiring it as they walked past. My parents' new Audi was in the garage, but they'd left the garage door open so everyone could see it as they came and went. Maya. Aunt Linda hugged me as I walked in. I'm so glad you're here. How are you doing, honey? I'm doing well, Aunt Linda. Looking forward to catching up with everyone. I made my rounds, hugging relatives and chatting politely. Grandma Rose gave me a meaningful look and squeezed my hand when I hugged her. Uncle Mike nodded approvingly when he saw me, and I noticed him positioning himself near the living room where most people were gathering. Jessica was holding court near the kitchen, regaling our younger cousins with stories about her new job and her car. She looked nervous when she saw me, but I smiled and waved like nothing was wrong. Mom and Dad were playing perfect hosts, making sure everyone had drinks and food, facilitating conversations between relatives who didn't see each other often. They both avoided making eye contact with me, but they were maintaining their cheerful facades admirably. About an hour into the party, my cousin Sarah asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Maya, how's the house hunting going? Last time we talked, you were getting close to having enough for a down payment." The conversations around us quieted slightly. This was a topic several family members had been following with interest, since I'd been talking about my goal of homeownership for over a year. "Actually, Sarah, there's been a setback with that." "Oh no. What happened?" I glanced around the room. Most of my relatives were listening now, including my parents and Jessica, who had gone very still near the kitchen island. Well, I had $15,000 saved in what I thought was a secure account, but it turned out that other family members had access to it. Someone withdrew all of my house money without telling me. You could have heard a pin drop. "What do you mean someone withdrew it?" Uncle Mike asked, though I knew he already knew the answer. "I mean that my sister Jessica took my entire house fund to buy herself a BMW. Jessica's face went white. "Maya, that's not, you're making it sound." "I'm making it sound like what it was, Jessica." "Theft." Mom stepped forward quickly. "Maya, honey, let's not discuss this here. This is Grandpa Joe's day." "Mom, you're right. It is Grandpa Joe's day. And Grandpa Joe taught us that family members should be honest with each other and treat each other with respect. So I think he'd want to know why his granddaughter stole from his other granddaughter, and why his daughter and son-in-law covered it up." Grandpa Joe, who had been sitting in his favorite armchair looking confused, spoke up. "What's this about stealing?" I walked over to him and knelt beside his chair. "Grandpa, Jessica took $15,000 from my savings account to buy a car. When I asked Mom and Dad to help me get it back, they said it was okay because Jessica needed transportation more than I needed a house." Grandpa Joe's expression hardened. "Is this true?" Dad stepped forward. "Dad, it's more complicated than Maya is making it sound. It was a joint account, so technically." "Don't you dare talk to me about technicalities, son." Grandpa Joe's voice carried the authority of 8 decades. "Did this girl steal money from her sister or not?" Jessica started crying. "Grandpa, I was going to pay her back. I just needed." "I didn't ask what you needed, Jessica. I asked if you stole from your sister." "Yes," Jessica whispered. The room erupted in shocked murmurs and uncomfortable shifting. Grandma Rose stood up. "And that's not all they did, Joe." For the next 30 minutes, my family's financial house of cards collapsed in front of 30 witnesses. Grandma Rose revealed that she'd given my parents $5,000 under false pretenses. Uncle Mike shared that he'd loaned Dad $15,000 for non-existent home improvements. Other relatives started putting pieces together: the expensive cars, Jessica's mysterious lifestyle funding, my parents' evasive answers about their finances. Cousin David asked pointed questions about the timeline of events, and I provided documentation that backed up everything I was saying. The folder I'd brought contained copies of bank records, Marcus's investigation summary, and a timeline of Jessica's real employment history versus what our parents had told everyone. "So let me get this straight," Aunt Linda said, her financial planner mind working through the implications. "You've been lying to the entire family about Jessica's situation, borrowing money from relatives under false pretenses, and allowing one daughter to steal from another to maintain these lies." Mom was crying now. "Linda, you don't understand the pressure we've been under. Jessica needed help getting started, and Maya has always been so independent. So independent that you felt comfortable stealing from her. We didn't steal anything. It was a joint account." "That's not the point." Grandpa Joe's voice cut through the chaos. "The point is that you raised one daughter to be responsible and honest, and then you punished her for it while rewarding the other one for being irresponsible and dishonest. Jessica ran out of the room, crying. Dad followed her, leaving Mom to face the family alone. I think, said Uncle Mike quietly, that we need to talk about how to fix this situation. What followed was essentially a family intervention. My relatives asked detailed questions about my parents' finances, Jessica's debts, and the sustainability of their current lifestyle. It became clear that my parents had been borrowing from everyone, formal loans, informal gifts, co-signed credit cards, to support Jessica while maintaining their own standard of living. Aunt Linda calculated that they owed over $60,000 to family members alone, not counting their mortgage debt and Jessica's car payments. This can't continue, Grandma Rose said firmly. And Maya cannot be the only person who suffers consequences for speaking the truth. By the end of the party, my family had agreed to a structured repayment plan for all money owed to relatives, including my $15,000. Jessica would move back home and contribute her entire paycheck to family expenses until the debts were paid. My parents would sell the Audi and use the proceeds to pay down their mortgage. Most importantly, they would participate in financial counseling and be transparent about their situation going forward. But the damage to relationships was irreversible. Several relatives expressed that they felt betrayed and manipulated. Grandpa Joe said he was deeply disappointed in his son. Grandma Rose announced that she would be changing her will to ensure that any future inheritance would be managed through a trust rather than given directly to my parents. I left the party feeling vindicated but not victorious. I had gotten justice, but at the cost of my family's reputation and unity. 6 months later, I'm writing this from the living room of my new house. Yes, I bought a house. Between Grandma Rose's gift, the repayment plan my family is actually following, and my own continued savings, I had enough for a down payment by early fall. It's a small 2-bedroom cottage with good bones and a lot of potential. The mortgage payments are manageable on my nursing salary, and I've never felt more proud of anything in my life. Every time I paint a wall or plant something in the garden, I think about how close I came to never having this because my family thought Jessica's wants were more important than my dreams. The repayment plan is working, mostly because the extended family is monitoring it closely. Jessica moved back home and, surprisingly, has kept the same job for 6 months now. Having structure and accountability has apparently been good for her, though our relationship remains strained. She sends me payment updates via text, but we don't really talk beyond that. My parents sold the Audi and are driving their old car again. They are also seeing a financial counselor every month and have been transparent about their situation with the family. Dad looks older, more tired, and Mom seems genuinely remorseful when we interact at family gatherings. But here's the thing about justice, it doesn't always feel as satisfying as you think it will. Yes, I got my money back. Yes, my family learned that there are consequences for treating me like a doormat. Yes, everyone now knows the truth about what kind of people they really were. But I also lost the illusion that my family would always have my back. I learned that the people who raised me to be honest and responsible were willing to abandon those values when it became inconvenient. I discovered that family loyalty, for them, was conditional on my willingness to absorb their bad behavior without complaint. The most painful part is that I don't think they understand why what they did was so devastating. They keep talking about it like it was a misunderstanding or a communication problem, not a fundamental betrayal of trust and values. They've paid me back financially, but they've never really acknowledged the emotional damage they caused. But you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being the family member who prioritizes truth over peace, who sets boundaries instead of absorbing chaos, who demands accountability instead of offering endless forgiveness. I've learned that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones most willing to sacrifice your well-being for their convenience. I've learned that being the responsible one in a dysfunctional family often means being expected to subsidize everyone else's poor choices without complaint. Most importantly, I've learned that justice doesn't always come in the form you expect, but it does come when you're brave enough to demand it. My relationship with my immediate family will never be the same, and honestly, that's probably for the best. The relationships I have now are based on honesty rather than denial, accountability rather than enabling, and mutual respect rather than one-sided sacrifice. Grandma Rose and I have dinner every Sunday now. Uncle Mike helped me install new appliances in my kitchen. Aunt Linda is helping me plan my retirement investments. Cousin David wrote a story about financial abuse in families that's helped other people recognize similar patterns in their own lives. I've built a new family constellation around people who value honesty and reciprocity, and it's so much healthier than what I had before. So here's my question for all of you who've stuck with me through this crazy journey. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own well-being? How do you handle situations where the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones causing you the most harm? And what does justice really look like when it comes to family betrayal? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It really helps me know that sharing these difficult experiences is worthwhile. And definitely subscribe for more real-life stories about family drama, personal growth, and finding your way through complicated relationships. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting me through this journey. I hope that if you're dealing with family financial manipulation or betrayal, you'll remember that you deserve honesty, respect, and accountability from the people who claim to love you. Don't be afraid to demand justice, even when it's uncomfortable. Sometimes burning bridges is the only way to build a better life on the other side. Here's to second chances, chosen families, and having the courage to stand up for yourself when no one else will. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you in the next story.